Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I'm glad you're here. Today's guest is Angie Wisdom. Angie, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Marie. I'm happy to be here.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
I would definitely have to say badass.
I love it. Own it. Have you always felt that way?
Not really. I think I wanted to always feel that way, but it was a little bit more of a facade than a real thing. It wasn't really until, my late 30s or 40s that I really stepped into that badass territory.
Is there anything that triggered that for you?
I think just the lack of feeling authentic and a lot of the shift in the coaching that I did, it was very results driven before, but wasn't necessarily authentic. You can move mountains with physical strength, but there's something to be said for the mental aspect of it. And so I think when I started to pour into a lot more of the mental side of it, I really started to see, what I was capable of to get to that badass place.
Okay. I really love that, how you said you can move mountains, physically, but there's a lot to be said about the mental space, because that's what Ordinary to Badass encompasses, is really the mindset part of it and the confidence, and that can help you do the physical things.
Absolutely. Yeah. People sell that short, right? Like, as long as they have all this grit and perseverance and they work hard and they put in their hours, that's going to create the most amount of success. But really, you can kind of cut back on those pieces of it if you show up authentic and in the right mindset and staying present, and create much more success than you can with those other pieces.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself. So Angie, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a life and business coach, and I started out in the financial industry forever ago, 25 years ago or so. And I did more of the investing side of it with clients. So I always liked helping clients, but I found that my true passion was really around helping people build their business. So that kind of led me in that direction. And as I said earlier, I used to always believe in just put your head down, grind away, grit, perseverance, all of those wonderful qualities. That's what always got me results. And along the road, I had an incident that kind of tripped me up, and eventually learned that there was more to it than that. And so put my efforts around the mindset part. So right now, I work with individuals and companies on coaching them around that mindset piece so that they can create meaningful success in the life that they love.
So you mentioned that you had an incident that tripped you up. Is that something you're willing to dive into a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I also own a financial firm. My husband and I are partners in that. And we had started that back in 2003. An incident happened where one of the clearing firms that we do business with filed for bankruptcy, 2011. And at that time I was, coaching again, kind of the results, just power through things. And the firm filed bankruptcy, which affected our customers and our client base. So something that we had put all this blood, sweat, and tears in growing, that was, a very profitable, thriving business, was instantly frozen and kind of taken out of our hands because of what a huge major corporation clearing firm had done. And in that moment, it was very clear to me that there are some things that you can't just push through, that you can't, muscle through. And that's when I really had to make the shift and realize that I got to start controlling my thoughts. I have to be able to stay in this present moment, because there were days I woke up and thought, how are we ever going to get out of this? How are we going to survive this? It wasn't in my control. This was an external force that, really was going to decide whether or not, our clients would get their money back, whether or not this business would go on. So much was out of my control. And I realized what was in my control was the ability to choose my thoughts, the ability to stay present, the ability to control my day and start it proactively every single day and not be reactive to what else was happening.
So how do you do that, or how do you start a practice to really focus on what's in your control?
You look at, I always have people look at, sometimes I'll say, make a list, get a piece of paper, write out your controllables and your uncontrollables. I was very much a person who focused on the uncontrollables and still somehow usually got my way. But this was like a rude awakening for me. And I didn't necessarily focus on my controllables before. So I say to people, make an uncontrollable and a controllable list. Really be aware of where you have that power. You can control your mind, your actions, your thoughts, your presence, all of that. You can't control people's feelings, people's reactions, people's actions. And so understanding first what you do and don't have control of is the first step.
And how has that changed things for you?
It's easy to look at something, and when something comes up for me, a stimuli or situation, I instantly think, okay, what's my controllable and what's my uncontrollable? Somebody's mad about something, I can't control their feelings. And that was a big thing for me, because I was very much a people pleaser and lived a life thinking that I could control people's feelings with the things that I did. But I had to realize that it's really false. I mean, you may win some of the times, but it's not because you have these magical powers to control people's feelings. It's because their feelings happen to align with what you did, right? So really assessing every time you have a situation, what can I control? What can I control? If I can't control it, it's out of the mind. I have no business worrying about it, thinking about it, trying to control it. It's off the table. And then I go, what can I control about the situation? And it usually comes back to, I can control what I think about it. I can control how I feel about it. I can control what kind of action I want to take on it. And so it really comes back to that almost every single time.
Yeah. And I think, when we're focusing on the things we can't control, it's so easy to just get negative or sucked into like the negativity and the drama of it all. As opposed to if you focus on what you can control, it's empowering.
Most definitely. And it's so crucial to stay in that empowered position, because what you just mentioned, that focusing on the uncontrollables, I mean, you're in essence a victim, right? Yeah. When you can't control something, you are a victim. So if that's what you focus on, think about the weight it puts on you and you going, I can't control this. So that's a big piece of it too, is really realizing where you're empowered and where you're a victim.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple times as like the powering through things. And I will be honest, I have always struggled with this. Like, I know powering through things isn't always healthy, but how do you get out of that loop of just trying to like power through things and take space for yourself, or learn to take space for yourself instead of powering through things?
Yeah. And I mean, I should define that a little bit, right? Because sometimes it's part of our character. I don't know if you use the Enneagram at all, but I am a challenger, which means, we're notorious for powering through things. And that's always going to be kind of a quality that I have and is great to use when the time is right. But it can't come at sacrificing and ignoring what you really need to take care of yourself. So for me, the way to counterbalance that is to know what your values are, to know what's most important to you. And those have to show up first before you can power through anything.
Okay, so say like I know my values and I know like family is important to me, community, that kind of thing. Then what do you do from there?
So if you know that that's the values that need to show up in your life, then those have to be prioritized. And some people may think, well, I don't really have time for all of these things. My values are alone time and a spiritual way of life and peace and tranquility. They may sound very fairy tale like for most mothers and people who are working, but you modify them to get what you can get. So if I have a very busy season and my values are that family time, that alone time, I've got to make sure those get in the calendar. And whether it's 5 minutes of alone time, 10 minutes of quality family time, you start putting those things in first, because the rest of your time is likely going to be allocated to that powering through, which we have seasons, right? We need to do that sometimes and work hard, but you've got to get those values in first.
Yeah. I think that anytime that we have clarity on what we want, that also helps kind of with the authenticity piece, like having a life that feels authentic to you.
Absolutely.
So you help coaching clients, and what is something that you often see them struggling with?
That's right there. The values piece is huge. I work with a lot of high achieving clients that sometimes are already super successful, but a common theme with almost all of my clients is that they're not necessarily fulfilled. They're not living their best life. And maybe what they have right now, they thought this was going to be it. They got the house, they have the family, they've got this great job, they're making, 7 figures, all these things. And they're like, something's still missing. And it's usually those values, right? They've worked so hard to build what they thought they wanted, but now that physical activity, the family time, the traveling, what their values are non-existent. And so that's the sign, that's your body's way of going, hey, I'm not really getting what I want. I have to have that values. They're like fuel. You got to fill me up with that in order for me to keep producing and going and being happy. So that's a common theme, is that the values are missing in people's life.
And do you think that has something to do with confidence as well? Like if you're not following your values, maybe you're not as confident in what you're doing?
100%, because it's almost like an integrity thing. Think about, like, if you know you need something to be your best self, but you're going, oh, I don't have time for it. I've got to get to work first. I've got to do the stuff for other people first. Like, I'll deal with me later. What's that message sending to yourself? That you're not that important, that everything else is more important than you. So it absolutely, it chips away at that confidence. When you're saying no to yourself all the time and yes to everybody else, that builds up a story.
Yeah, I've recently been reading The Genius Zone by Gay Hendricks. I don't know if you've read that. He was talking about like how when you're not living true to your authentic self, like the truth just wants to leak out of you. You don't act the same way because you just want to tell your truth so bad.
It's so true. And that's when a lot of times my clients will feel like they're out of integrity. And they're like, they want to live a certain way. They want to be their genuine selves, but they're not actually doing the things that would make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier, you said something like, when you say yes to yes to everyone else, you're saying no to yourself. I love that. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yes, it's one of my favorite things. And I don't even know where I think I originally heard it from, but I tell my clients all the time, if you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another. And you have to look at that kind of relationship, because we give out yeses all the time, right? Especially, women are more likely to say yes. If, you're an employee and you have kids in school or something, there's so many yeses to give. But really, each one of those yeses means that you just gave your time away. And whether you were going to have your alone time, you just said no to it. Whether you gave up your workout, you just said no to you. whether you're volunteering at the school and that was going to be your time to, read, you just said no to yourself. So usually that yes to someone else is coming back as a no to you.
So do you have any tips of what we can do to become better at saying yes to ourselves?
Oh, I do. The values assessment, and I'm happy to share this with you too, if you can share it with your listeners. Once you know what your values are, and I tell people like have 5 to 7, right? It might be some examples, creativity, family time, spiritual time, accomplishment, challenge. Once you know what your values are, I literally have my clients put them on an index card, totally old fashioned, right? In this age of technology, but I have them put them on an index card. And I said, when somebody asks you to do something, look at your values, pull out that card and kind of run it through there and go, is this in alignment with my values? And if it's not, be empowered to say, I'm sorry, I can't. Because we feel so guilty by saying no. But I wish sometimes we would feel guilty about saying no to ourselves. That often doesn't show up though.
I know, because it's so funny. We often think we have to have like some sort of excuse as to why we can't do something. Like we can't say, oh, I need time to myself, or no, thank you, or I'm not available for that. We think we have to have a reason to justify why we can't.
It's so true. I say, my clients will say, what should I tell them? And I'm like, you don't have to tell them anything, you don't have to have a reason. But I love that you brought up, the excuse, because I say sometimes your values are your excuse. And I have a client and she's a total overachiever and she's PTP president and a, mega mom and rock star in her industry. And she was the PTP president. And it was like, dreadful, in a sense that like she didn't have the time to do it. She didn't really want to do it. She just kind of said yes. And when it came time to do it again, she was like, I pulled out my card and I had a reason. Why? Because I knew that if I said yes to that, I was saying no to my family time, to my physical activity, to my peace and tranquility. So you can use it like that too. When you say yes to something that's not in alignment with your values, you're really saying no to those values that are important to you.
So have you found, or maybe, let me restart that. People sometimes are embarrassed to pull out a card or pull out something that they're going to have to look at, or like they don't want somebody else to see. Have you found that even just thinking about pulling out the card, like if they don't even physically pull it out, even just thinking about, oh yeah, I have that in my pocket, or it reminds them to reflect on their values instead of actually pulling out the card?
Absolutely. And I'm sure, that was a conversation she had on the phone, so she pulls it out for herself.
Right.
But I always recommend read your values every morning, because then you have them memorized. But yes, you're very right, Marie. Thinking about it as just like pull out your card is going to make your mind kind of pull those from the file and go, does this line up with that?
So you talked for a moment about reading them in the morning. I love that. I think it's so powerful, even with goals and stuff, like reading them in the morning or reading them at night before you go to bed. But can you expand and say why that's helpful?
Yeah, first of all, I do have a morning routine that I'm very, very adamant, and I try to get all of my clients on.
I want to hear about it. Yes.
Okay, good. And I actually got a funny text from a client today, because people always waver on it. They do it and then they fall off, and they do it and they fall off. And she literally sent me a text saying, she was like, that's it. It's decided. The morning routine is a non-negotiable starting right now, because when you do it, you just feel amazing and your day goes totally different than if you don't. But we can talk about that in a minute. But part of that is really understanding what are your values and looking at those to say, this is what fills me up. If you knew every day what was going to give you energy and make you feel your best self, you'd want to look at it, right? You want to read it and remind yourself, right, that here's what's going to fill me up, and just read through them real quick. Alone time, peace and tranquility, spirituality. And that way they're just like in your mind, you're acknowledging yourself. You're saying, I see you, I know what you need. I'm putting it in my mind right now, and I will hold them here for the day and make sure they get in there.
Yeah. And it reminds me, if you're not like intentional about your joy, then you're not going to find joy. You know, like
Mhm.
sometimes you have to be very intentional about finding those things that bring you happiness or light you up on the inside, and make it a point to have that in your day. Otherwise, you could let life pass you by so quickly.
100%. And I see it all the time. Now I say, if you're retired and you have like no obligations and you can just walk around finding your joy all day, it's probably going to come very natural for you, right? But in a life where that's not how we typically live, at least for, us women who are married and kids or working, anything like that, other obligations, your mind is constantly pulled to everything else you have to do. So if you don't intentionally say, hey, here's your values, make sure you get them in today, then it's likely it's not going to happen.
Yes, it's easy to be like squirrel,
Yes,
distracted.
so true. Absolutely.
So I want to hear about this morning routine you have.
Yes, I love my morning routine. And it hits some of my values, right? Because I love the alone time. I love the peace and tranquility I get from it. There's a little spirituality component in there. So first thing in the morning, and I believe that you have to do this before you look at your phone, your computer, anything else. We need like this perfectly clear mind that hasn't worried about other people, that hasn't dug into what clients need or friends need, just your pure perfect mind. And you show up with that and you're telling yourself, this is for you. I'm giving you this time, right? And it takes 15 minutes, but it's about, first of all, asking yourself, how do I feel? Because you creating that awareness around yourself gives you the ability to make changes. And I don't want to sidetrack too much, but you know how some people say, well, I had a horrible day today. It started first thing in the morning. Like they didn't have a choice, right? It was horrible right out of the gate. And so the rest of the day went that way. This is your opportunity when you ask yourself, how do I feel? For you to express it. If you feel horrible, I feel horrible. But then that second piece is, what do you want to do to make a change about it? And that's where you're empowered to choose a different thought. So that creates that mindset. So we're working on awareness and then the mindset to choose a different thought. Then I go into intentions. What are your intentions for the day? You may have 2, you may have 5. Those are really like the things that you are going to accomplish today. It may be how you show up, or it may be something very specific. I'm, going to call 10 of my past clients. I'm going to do this project for my kids, art fair, whatever it may be. But your intentions are a very solid commitment. They shouldn't be on there unless you're intending to get them done. That's building up trust, right? Because you set out to do what you said you do. And it's also allowing you to drive the car. You're not just going, okay, what does everyone have for me today? You're saying, this is what I'll accomplish. After the intentions, I move into gratitude. Got to be grateful, changes your mindset, creates that abundance mindset, also allows you to see opportunities from negative situations. And then I move into prayer. And regardless of whether you're religious or it's the universe, whatever your belief is, just putting out there what you want is a powerful thing. It's like you kind of projecting that and taking ownership of it and putting it out there. So that's my morning routine process. And the best thing about it is that when you do that for yourself every single day before anything else, imagine the trust you build with yourself, right?
Yes.
The relationship and the commitment.
I really like how you said what you intend to get done, not just saying the things that you have, on a list that maybe you'll get done, but actually being intentional and making it happen, and building trust with yourself. I don't think a lot of people think about the whole building trust with yourself, or they don't realize how strong or how important that is. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So yes, that trust part is super important because first I'll say, like, if you want to have a relationship with somebody, what do you need to do in order to really grow that, right? How do you feel comfortable that this person is going to be there for you, that they're going to be committed and that you can trust them. And clients always say, well, you know, that they're consistent, that they're committed, that they're honest. All of these traits that you have to get with yourself, right? So if you want to trust yourself and have this amazing amount of confidence, you have to show up for yourself every single day, consistently, have that commitment and that trust that what you said you're going to do, you did. So even in just the habit of doing the morning routine, you're building that trust with yourself. You're being authentic in what your affirmations are, what your prayers are, what your gratitude is. And that you get closer to yourself, get closer to being your, authentic, genuine self. And there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the following through on what you say you're going to do. And then, you get more confidence in that. But the more you do something like, and I've done this before too, like, oh, I'm going to start a diet on Monday, and then don't start the diet on Monday, and you do that over and over. Then you stop believing in yourself that you can make a change.
Right. What's your word mean anymore?
Right.
Right. You know that if you change your mind, you can just change your mind. So that's a really powerful thing, because when it comes time for you to step up to the plate for yourself, like these little things may not matter so much. You think it's not that big of a deal if I didn't do this or that. But when you're trying to make a really big move, say it's something in business, and you're like, gosh, am I gonna do this? If you've gotten to back on yourself so many times, it's hard for you to feel confident and push yourself out of that comfort zone and know that, heck yes, I'm going to do this. But when you've showed up for yourself every day and you set those intentions and accomplished them, there won't be a question in your mind. Like, absolutely, I do this every day. I'm committed to myself. So there's so much power in just that part of the routine alone.
So as the morning routine, is it a way to start building trust with yourself? Maybe if you've lost trust in other areas of your life?
Absolutely. It's a great way to look at it, because sometimes people will go to like a specific habit. Like, I'm really going to exercise this time. I'm really going to follow through with that diet this time. But just getting to know yourself and being honest and authentic with you every day is the perfect way to build trust with yourself.
So what has this done for you, or what's the difference when you don't do your morning routine versus when you do your morning routine?
The other part of it, the morning routine has so many pieces. I could go down 10 different rabbit holes, but another piece of that morning routine is that it puts you in the driver's seat, right? If you wake up to your alarm in just enough time to get ready or get your family ready and get out the door, it'll tend to feel like a very reactive day. What does somebody need from me? What do I have to do here? What do I have to do there? You just get up and you're on the defense. That morning routine puts you ahead of that. So it says, well, if I need to get going at 8, I'm going to do my morning routine at 7:30. So I've got this half-hour window to really kind of get all my ducks in a row, to take control of my day. And then I'm going out and I'm going to be on the offense instead. So it's a very proactive approach to your day. So typically you will feel less stressed, less overwhelm. You will feel like you've had control in your day, that you had an intention. It also really helps for you to wind down at the end of the day, because you don't finish that day going, oh my gosh, I was so busy, but what did I even do? You're putting out fires all day long, or just tending to what everyone else needed. So you generally feel fulfilled and just accomplished.
Yeah. And I feel like I heard somewhere like, take time for yourself. Otherwise you're pulled like a million different ways, or everybody else will take your time. But it's
absolutely
true. Yeah. So do you have a mantra that you use?
I don't know. I don't really know that I have a mantra. I always, just say everything you should do should be creating, meaningful success in a life that you love. That's what the basis of all my work is, no matter what somebody comes to me for. If it's not trying to create meaningful success, then you're kind of missing the mark there. And if you don't have a life that you love, there's something you can do about it. So I guess if you would call that a mantra, maybe, but other than that, no.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to put that in there.
No, you're good. Yeah. No, not everybody has mantras. Not everybody has a morning routine. And I think like what works for you might not work for me or might not work for somebody else, but it's like listening to what different people say and tweaking it to work for yourself.
Absolutely. It's got to fit to you.
So I'm sure a lot of clients come to you with confidence issues. And what do you do to help them gain confidence, or what do you suggest to them? Or is it just part of the values piece?
It depends on what the lack of confidence is around, right? Sometimes that comes from the lack of commitment to themselves. Sometimes it comes from caring too much about what other people think. So it shows up in different forms for people, and you really kind of have to attack it from where it's coming from, where it's originating from. But overall, I believe that when you stay in the present moment and when you have that commitment and consistency to yourself, you show up genuine, and that's where confidence comes from. I think sometimes people think about confidence in terms of like their ability to do something, like to feel confident in their ability. But the fact of the matter is like if you're trying to get good at something, you're not going to have confidence in doing it that first time, right? It would be silly to go, well, how do I, get confidence to get online and deliver this amazing video when you've never done it before? So how about having confidence just in who you are and trusting that moment that you're going to be exactly who you need to be?
Yeah, it can be so hard for people to just, trust in the moment and be who they need to be. And kind of like you were saying earlier, to just be able to sit with yourself and to be like, how do I feel? I think we ignore so many times how we feel or how our body feels, because your body's also telling you like, when you feel tightness in your chest, or it's giving you signs about how you feel, but sometimes we just ignore or reject that.
100%. I mean, it's easy to kind of go on this, what I refer to as a default life. It's almost like an unconscious state where the unhealthy powering through, right? We just kind of ignore it. We don't have the awareness. And it all starts with awareness. I tell people all the time, you have to have the awareness and you have to have the willingness for growth or change to happen. They don't always happen at the same time. You may just have that awareness for a long time, painfully long time, before the willingness steps in. But it's about leaving that door open with the awareness so that when you're ready, willingness has that space to enter and make that change.
Well, I think that's the power also of having a coach. Like for most of my life, I don't think I really realized how impactful it is to have a coach or have somebody to like guide you along or get you out of your own stinking way. So will you talk a little bit about that? The importance of having somebody like you or having a coach just to kind of guide them through the process?
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm a big fan of coaches. I have a coach. I have two, a book coach and a, life and business coach as well, because even if you're great at something, you have to have another mind that can challenge you, that can ask you questions to look at things in a different way. Because I think it was Einstein who said, the mind that created the problem can't solve the problem. So oftentimes, if you don't have that unbiased sounding board to work through things with, you don't know what direction to take. You end up kind of staying stuck, or you end up making one-sided decisions based upon, how you feel in that moment instead of really unpacking what's around it. So coaching is just such an exploratory, process. I think most people believe that it's about someone telling you what to do, but it really isn't. It's about somebody asking you powerful questions so that you can dig deep and find the real answers. Because my answer for you is not going to be right for you, but your answer is. So if you have a coach that can ask you that question, then you're unlocking really, really powerful stuff within yourself.
Yes, I love that. The power of questions. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
My best tip, hands down, do the morning routine I'll share a sheet with you too that I use for my clients, but do a morning routine, even if it's 5 minutes right now. Show up for yourself and, write down some affirmations, write down, your prayer, read a value, anything that is tending to you alone, and, your own alone time, your commitment, your consistency to yourself is going to blossom into something much bigger.
Yes. So powerful. Show up for yourself, O to be yours. You won't regret it. Like, that's the best 5 minutes that you could spend of your day.
So true.
Angie, how can we connect with you?
Follow me on Instagram at Angie Wisdom Life Coach. I throw out videos all the time, free worksheets for you to kind of use to process through goals or values or mindset. I have a YouTube channel out there as well, Angie Wisdom Life Coach, and I'm on LinkedIn, but website is angiewisdom.com. So lots of different ways, but Instagram has the most amount of content. You can ask questions on there. I love to help and support people, so I'm always there if something comes up.
So is angiewisdom.com where they can find that worksheet that you referred to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. And I will put it in the show notes. Thank you so much, Angie. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Thanks for having me, Maria. It was awesome.
With that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it. Wasn't Angie badass? She was so amazing. But I want to take a second and reassure you that you are a badass too. I can't even tell you how many badasses I've interviewed that have told me, I'm not a badass, or why do you want to interview me? This has happened time and time again. Some of them have ended up on the show. Some have not. Even when they declined, I thought, you are so badass. Like, I would love to hear from you. I would love for my listeners to hear from you. So I want to encourage you, even if you're feeling down, I know that you're a badass. We all have seasons of life. Some feel like they're up, some feel like they're down, but just because you have a season that you consider down doesn't mean other people think so. Other people still consider you as a badass. So I want to encourage you today, whether you're feeling up at your highest of highs or your lowest of lows, don't let that change your perception. You are a badass. And I just would love nothing more for you to own that during your high times, your good times, and your low times, your bad times. Because I know that you're a badass, and that doesn't change if you have a crappy day, right? So that's what I want for you today, is to keep being your badass self. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you soon. To your badassery.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass, and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.